Okay, this part of the entire universe is Earth. This is it. This is Earth. Okay, so every single one of the continents that you see inside of Earth, I made it very clear that in the beginning, all the continents weren't broken as you have seen them now. Okay, they were all together. Okay, well, they were all placed in one particular form that is surrounded by the entire ocean. That is what Earth represents, just like every other universes that exist outside of this particular Earth. Okay, so when you look at the northern part of things, the northern part always represents the Arctic Circle. Okay, the northern part of it is the north here. The top part of your sun, that represents the spirit. The spirit is the triangle that is always facing top. Okay, I told you, and it's the same thing as the S here. Okay, north is south, east is west. Okay, so when you start from the north here, the north part of it represents the Arctic Circle. The down here represents Antarctica. And in all the other worlds that exist inside of this world, as the continents, there's primarily 7 aspect part of them. 7 aspect part of the continent. And I made it very clear, for you to be able to escape Earth realm, you need 7 particular energies to raise above the normal. You need to let go of the fear. You need to let go of the regret. If not, reincarnation is what you are coming back to do. Because these particular 7 continents, you are going to be born to either one of them. Depending on the level of vibration that you are operating at. You can be a black person inside this particular world, and still when you reincarnate, the amount of consciousness that you are going to be holding are going to be below and someone that is born in Europe. Okay, so when you look at all these pieces of the entire of what this particular world is, I made it very clear. Every single one of these particular continents represent a cell inside of your being. Let me be very specific about what I'm talking about. This is the entirety of what you are. Okay, you eat food from the north. Everyone eats food through their mouth. The food passes through this place all the way to the middle. So this part of yourself that represents the north, the part of yourself that masticates and breaks down what the food is, for you to understand it as whether it tastes sweet or it tastes bitter, or whether it tastes this or tastes that way, no. That is the part that represents the north, the part that sucks in the light. Okay, so whilst you are busily here chewing, you are using the mind. You are using the mind, the entire collectivity of what the light is, to interpret that particular morsel of food that you just swallowed. Okay, so this particular morsel of food gets inside of the center part of yourself, which represents the wisdom part, where the fire is, where the light is. And then it is broken down into different various categories of nutrients. Calm down. It subtracts all the information, all the nutrients, the necessary nutrients from that particular morsel of food, and then it distributes it to your lungs, it distributes it to your livers, it distributes it to your heart, it distributes to every single organ inside of your own being to keep it functioning. And the rest of what is unneeded is discarded on the way to the south. Okay? You always see people saying that, hey, Charlie, before you better take care of things, so before things go south. Before things go south, that is what they are trying to explain for you to understand. It's a simple common sense. Okay, so every single one of these continents are cells, are different kinds of cells that carries out different kinds of responsibilities to keep the particular earth working. The continent of Asia produces things that Africa doesn't produce. The continent of America produces things that Africa does not produce. The continents of Europe, Antarctica, or all the other circles that exist, they all have a sole responsibility in working to keep this particular entire universe working. Do you understand what I'm explaining? Okay? So when it comes to the representation of these particular cells inside of your own being, the cells there have the ability to inform the particular experience of the universe. You being an entire universe. Okay, this is you. This is you. You being an entire universe. Every form of information is taken from here. The entire body, okay, the entire body, this is the body. Okay, it's taking information from the mind. Without the mind, this what you call physical 5 senses will not be able to work. So without the mind telling you the kind of food that is necessary to feed these particular continents, the kind of behavior, the kind of alignment, the kind of growth, the kind of appreciation that will allow this continent to understand that they are not just different, okay? They are not just different, but they are all connected to one particular source, which is the mind. You are all connected to an entire universe. You are not just existing alone, but your actions has influences on the rest of the other worlds that exist outside of this world. So you can't just get up and instead of Asia to talk to America to settle things peacefully, you start throwing nukes at each other. Instead of China to talk to South America to make peace, they start nuking each other. This is what it means for you to be a cell that is inside of your own self that rebels against your own universe. Just like the way the food that you eat. If you are someone that loves eating food that destroys your cells, because there are certain foods that you just eat for the taste of it and not the beneficiary of how they provide nutrients to each of your cells. I made it very clear that your cells don't eat food. Your cells eat energy, they eat nutrients. The particular kind of energy that they extract from that particular morsel of food is what is keeping this universe working. Okay, so if you are eating things that is of a lower nature, then the capacity or the strength that they can house in order to keep your body working is not going to be adequate. That is what sickness is. So all of you, if you are inside of this world, whether you are in North America, whether you are in South America, whether you are in Africa, whether you are in Asia, whether you are in Europe, all these particular continents, you are like single cells that has a sole responsibility to yourself as much as you have an entire responsibility to you as an entire universe. Do you understand? So if your liver is having a problem, all you need to do is provide medications, is provide the herbs, is provide the necessary platforms, allow the necessary detoxification so that your cells can begin to absorb the nutrients necessary from what you are eating so that your liver can get healed. If Africa is having a problem and then Asia or Europe or South America is saying that is not our problem, sooner or later, what you call Africa here is going to start fighting back. Okay, the particular part of your liver that isn't working in its full capacity is going to be like, I'm not going to work anymore because I am struggling and you are not helping me. Do you understand? So when this particular aspect part of the Africa or the particular part of your intestine or the particular grouping part of your liver gets very tired, okay, it begins to complain. And when it complains, who do you think it complains to? It complains to the north. It complains to the part of itself that is giving it the information, the brain. It begins to tell the brain, and the brain is the entire universe. The brain is what is connecting you to God. The brain is the source itself that is able to interpret what you see as light, what you see as food. So the cells are going to be talking to God, telling God that, please, God, I am tired of this particular thing. I want things to change. This thing can be like this. I want things to be like this. So immediately this particular Africa starts seeing that these particular worlds that exist, okay, they are all a part of me. I don't see them as different, but if they are seeing me to be different, then I need to find my own way. I don't need to fall back to what they are saying because every form of mineral that they distribute, every form of thing that they take, okay, every form of thing that they have in their world, in their countries, 90% of it, the extract comes from Africa. Okay, so everything that you are getting as nutrients inside of your cells, everything that you get as energy comes from that particular essence, from the north. So the north here represents the energy center of what God is. The highest form of energy rises from the east. The highest forms of energy rises from the east, which is the sun. So if you look at the world map, this is north, this is south, and this is east. Okay, and this becomes west. This becomes west. Just like your stomach, this becomes the eastern part of your stomach, and this becomes the western part of your entire universe. This is exactly how things are. Every single processing unit takes place in the middle. That is the 8. The 8 is the middle. So if you are ignoring the 8, if you are not feeding the 8 the necessary energy that it can distribute information to the east, distribute information to the north, distribute information to the west, distribute information to the south, then the middle will begin to crumble. The middle part of you will begin to lack. And when the middle part of you begin to lack, what your liver is supposed to get is not going to get. what your pancreas is supposed to get, it's not going to get. So the amount of energy or the amount of strength that is going to be coming, okay, for the entire cells that makes up of the earth is going to be lacking, because all the earth is connected to Africa. All the earth is connected to Africa. Okay, when you look at the meridian line, I told you the plus sign, okay, every single one of them is connected to Africa. Every single one of them is connected to Africa. So when you are piecing all the maps together into one particular form, okay, listen very carefully. When you are piecing all the maps together into one particular form, then you will understand why most of the ancient buildings or the Aztecs that are in somewhere in the South Americans and then the North Americans, you know, when you piece all the maps together, you will get it somewhere at the bottom of Africa somewhere. Do you understand? All the temples that were built is from that particular designation of what Alkebulan is. So when you were all one back together, we'll talk about that particular time in another time, okay? I just want you to understand this. I just want you to understand it very simply, because if you look at Earth and you are seeing continents, when you look at Earth and you are seeing this particular person as being an Asian, when you are looking at Earth and you are seeing a particular person to be a Mexican, to be an Espanol, to be an African, and you are not seeing the deeper context of how you are all here to work as a supporting system, to be able to understand yourself entirely, because whatever the collectivity or whatever the collective or the most of you are putting your minds to, that is what God is going to be reacting to. So if the middle part of you isn't secure, if the middle part of you isn't finding peace, the rest of you will not find peace. That is exactly how it is. If your soul is in turmoil, nothing that you are able to think, okay, will have enough strength to manifest it the way you want it. Do you understand what I'm saying? When you put all these particular words, okay, all these particular continents, I told you they are the fragmentation that represents the part of yourself that interprets color. So let me make this explanation very simple, okay? This is the part of yourself that interprets the color. This is the black spot, and from here you will have lines like this. You have lines like this. This is the part that interprets color. Color varying in different forms, color vibrating in different frequencies, color vibrating in different levels. This is what you get. The part of your eye that represents color. This is how it is. Okay? So all this one, whenever the information or whenever light passes through inside to the dark spot and then it is reflected in, one of these particular lines is what is giving you the information about what that particular light that you've just perceived is actually meaning. Okay, so when it comes to the entire continent of North America, this is where North America is. Okay, let me just put it outside here, then it will be clearer for you to see. Okay, so let's say this particular drawing that I'm trying to do is North America. Okay, so this is the content of North America. North America is in this part of your eye. This part of your eye is North America. This part of your eye is South America. Okay, this part of your eye represents Europe, the continent of Europe. This part of your eye represents this particular continent of Asia. Okay, so this part of your eye in the middle, that is where Africa is. Okay, that is where Africa is. So all these particular pieces of the continents that exist, the part of your eye that interprets this particular information, they are all in this particular aspect, all these particular aspect. When you put the entirety of your map, okay, the entirety of the continents of the globe, they are at the part that interprets light. Light here, the people of Asia are different. When you look at their skin, they are different. When you look at their culture, they are different. When you look at their attributes, they are different. The people of North America, when you look at their celebrations, they are different. When you look at their practices, they are different. Their way of food is different. When you look at the people of Africa, the way in which their skin is different. Their culture, their attributes, their languages, every single thing is different. And yet you are all what represents color. Okay, all of you fall under the color spectrum. That is why I said you are all different, but you are all taking information from one particular source. It doesn't mind if you see yourself to be a Gambian. It doesn't mind if you see yourself to be a Korean. It doesn't mind if you see yourself to be a Slavic. All of those particular countries that exist inside of this world are the part that represents color. Color has different forms of variations. Color has different forms of variations. Do you understand what I'm saying? So this particular part of your eye, most of you inside of this world, you actually feel like, oh, the way in which the firmament is, okay, this part of myself that represents the firmament, okay, is very close. It is not close. Let me be very clear, okay? This is the part of yourself that you are existing inside of an iris. And let me make this very clear. When you see a particular plane flying, okay, let's say this is the plane of the earth. Okay, it's already here. This is the plane of the earth. When a plane flies on the earth, on the surface of the earth, this is the part of yourself that represents the solid nature as the continents inside of water. This part of yourself is water. Never forget it. Water is what interprets the light for you to understand. Water represents the soul. That is why this part of yourself is the eight. That is why it's in the middle. The part of yourself that holds the information about yourself. The part of yourself that knows everything. So if you are here, okay, if you are at the continent of North America or the continent of Asia or the continent of Africa, you are only existing, okay? Let me make it, let me make this very clear, okay? When you look at this, this is an entire nail, okay? The nail that you usually use hammer on. Okay, this is an entire nail. This is an entire nail. The part that you are as Africa, these particular lines that you are existing in, when you take this particular line and then you zoom it, when you take this particular line and then you open it, and you take this particular line and you open it, the part of yourself that is able to understand this part, this is the part that you represent. The part of yourself that you are as Africa, whether you are in Ghana, whether you are in Gambia, whether you are in Ethiopia, is this part, this small part, okay? You are like a dot. You are like a symbol dot, okay? You are like a simple punctuation mark as compared to the rest of everything that exists on the outside, okay? You are like a simple punctuation. So if you actually feel like, why is it that when planes fly, they don't get to the dome? The planes don't even fly out of this particular eyesight, focus of seeing what the white part of yourself is. The particular part of your eye that interprets the information, all these islands, okay, all these solid part of yourself, they are all existing inside of the eye. So tell me, when was the last time that all the tall skyscrapers that you've built, all the tall buildings, all the tall infrastructures, when was the last time have you seen a plane flying that they are able to show you that this is my house, this is my friend's house, this is where I work, and this is the school? Were you able to make out all those particular lines? All that you see is a figurative representation of the entire thing. You only see lines. When you are up inside in the inside of an aeroplane, you are only seeing lines. You don't see the representation of a country. You don't see the representation of a particular culture of people. You don't see a particular writing of a language, a particular way of life. No, you are seeing lines. These particular lines is these things. Okay? You are only seeing lines. So I want to make it very clear. When you are thinking the firmament is very close, you people, you've not even gotten to the first layer of what the ozone layer is. Okay? There are various categories, okay, to this particular sphere that you call Earth. Okay? There are various levels into growing. There are various levels. So you haven't even gotten to the first level. You haven't gotten to the second level. Because if they made it very clear to you, they told you that in the creation, there are angels and there are devils. Okay? So in between the angels and then the devils exists different layers of realities. Like I was explaining here. Earth is just this. This is another world. This is another world. So if you pick Earth and then you open it, there are universes too that exist inside of Earth. I told you we are going to go down and then we are going to straight it down. What you call angels, I'm going to show them angels inside of your own self. Okay? I'm going to show you the angels inside of your own self. Then you will understand very deeply when I'm talking about raising of your chakras. You know, this is one chakra, this is another chakra, but you need the others. The other chakras that exist in between, like this particular thing that I've drawn here. Okay, you will understand these particular dimensions and the hierarchy that they are telling you, the classification of the angels. An angel that has a higher rank, the archangels, the visuals, or the powers, or the principalities, or the dominions, all of them, they are existing inside of you. And I'm going to use that to interpret this particular information so that you understand how huge or how far this particular firmament actually is. So you are talking about planes flying up and planes flying down. Every single one of them, you can never dig to the core of this particular earth. Let me be very clear on that. The core of this particular earth can only be reached by one sentient being. We are not yet there yet, okay? So let's just continue with this, okay? So this part of your eye that interprets the color, all these particular lines represent variations of color that is represented in the colors of the rainbow. So all of you inside of this world, you are existing at this particular part. The part of yourself that is white, the part of yourself that is the whitest part of your eye represents the entire universe. The part of yourself, the words that you have no idea of what they actually represent. So these are the three basic forms of yourself. For you to understand yourself as a continent, for you to understand yourself as a single cell, the knowledge of self must begin from here. Do you understand what I'm saying? I always want you people to actually give the replies if you are getting what I'm talking about, because mostly I feel like the information is too deep and the way in which I'm presenting it, that is the easiest form that you can get to understand. So if you understand this, you always make it known to me, okay? So when it comes to people that speak about awakening on the internet, you can see that somebody is telling you that this part of yourself is like this, that part of yourself is like this, but they're going, or they've been able to go into a deeper context, all lies on how selfless they are able to provide the service to the rest of the souls inside of this world to awaken. Do you understand? The divine source is the one that connects to every form of timeline that exists. Every form of timelines exists inside of you. This is like the neurons of your own system. Okay, you are made up of electricity. Without electricity, there is no life. So the way in which the absolute communicates to every form of life inside of this world, be it the life of an ant, be it the life of a goat, be it the life of a cow, or be it the life of a human, every single one of you is receiving information in accordance to the level of wavelength that you are connected to God with. Okay, so from your crown chakra, this is your crown chakra. That is when the information, or that is when the downloads comes from. Okay, I told you the interpretation of light. When light comes from the sun, immediately it hits a particular prism, or immediately that it hits the part of yourself that allows you to interpret color in a different form that you call the rainbow. These particular colors, all of them have different variations when it comes to the level that they are operating at. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, so when it comes to this divinity, or when it comes to the absolute, every form of information is basically categorized into three particular aspects. Every form of information that we receive, the head or the crown or the heaven, is categorized into three particular forms of information. Okay, so you have the first one as the conscious mind, or the conscious receiver, okay, or the unconscious. Either how you are putting it or not. Most people are aware of their thoughts, other people are not. That is what the conscious and the unconscious is about. But every form of being inside of this world receives information. Every form of being inside of this world receives information from the absolute itself. Do you understand? Okay, so the second part of yourself is the limbic, which is like the emotional resonance. Okay, all of you are born through water. All of you are operating in water. 90% of your entire universe is made up of water. So it's through the waters of creation that every form of life came into being. Be it that you hatch from an egg that is external, or you hatch from an egg that is internal. Every form of communication inside of this world comes with the resonance of you being able to understand how to navigate your own emotions. So the emotions is in the middle, okay? The emotional representation of yourself is in the middle. When you become aware of the emotions or how the transmutation of the emotions inside of your own being is, then you can be able to cause a change into the reptilian or the mammalian part of yourself, which is like what you interpret as physical reality. Okay, when you are able to handle the emotions that comes inside, it is very easy to understand the reality in which you are living. So you receive information from source itself. You receive information from the absolute, and this information is shredded into different various forms of categories, like the one that I've drawn here. Some are going to the ants, some are going to the monkeys, some are going to the dogs, some are going to the humans, and humans are categories, or humans have categories. So each of them is receiving information based on the wavelength that they are operating at. But you are all connected to one particular source. The source is the one that bonds deeply to the one that is able to understand the concept of balance, the concept of creation, understanding that you being in the middle, both being able to create and both being able to destroy, you have the ability to do that. That is how deeply that you are able to bond with the absolute source itself. Do you understand? God is one thing that does not take sides. God is one thing that does not discriminate. But when it comes to the actions of creation, there is always an alignment to growth than destruction. Do you understand? It always aligns itself to discovering new aspect part of itself rather than destroying what has already been created. So it's very simple for you to understand. This part of yourself, this three representation part of yourself, is what represents the heaven. Is what represents the heaven. Every form of communication that comes as your physical self, as the neuron transmissions of these electrical nodes, exists inside of you. So when you are out there and then you are preaching about awakening, when you are out there and you are spreading the message of what we truly are as the within to the outside of yourself. Now, when it comes to how selfless, or when it comes to you being able to receive more information from the absolute, depends entirely about how you feel. Okay, with every other animal or with every other species or with every other being that exists inside of this world, be it of a human or be it of an animal, there is no pretending in this. Once your light inside of you begins to bloom plenty, okay, once your light begins to bloom, the source itself, that is the whole absolute, begins to send more information into that one particular timeline, like me explaining here. Okay, it begins to direct more energy into that particular concept because it now understands that you are growing and you are ready to learn something more of yourself. That is why self-denial, that is why you pretending that I want the power, and when if I get the power, then I can use it for good deeds. No, you become good, and the good is realized on your physical self as the material experiences that you are having. Do you understand what I'm saying?